Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How is your heart today? Is your heart kind? How is your mind? Is your mind calm and clear? We're going to discuss today and talk about what spiritual awakening people experience, what transcending people experience, and I call it the emotional crucible. So a crucible is a test. It's a test of will, a test of our will, a test of our strength. You've probably seen videos, lots of them, with titles such as The Sadness Spiritual Awakening People Go Through, Why You Experience Depression When You're Transcending, these types of titles that describe what I'm going to talk about today when we go through emotional crucibles, this test. As we move from the old attitude and outlook on life to the new attitude and outlook on life. In the documentary movie titled What the Bleep Do We Know, which is about science and spirituality, Dr. Joe Dispenza discusses this. And he puts it this way. As we're moving, you could say, from the old way of thinking and living to the new way, it's like crossing a river. The water's 4 feet high. You want to get to the other side. People step in to the river. They discover the water's cold. They discover that the moving water has a force to it that's uncomfortable. And most people will get halfway and turn back, go back to the riverbank where it's comfortable. And the point of that description is people can't tolerate uncomfortable experiences. I, at one point, used to weigh 319 pounds, probably more. Rode a Harley Davidson, was obnoxious, sarcastic, and out of touch with reality. And one of my favorite sayings was, life ain't easy when you're fat and greasy. I thought it was funny. Actually, it was my life mantra at the time. And things have changed. Things have changed. My life isn't the way it used to be. My attitude and outlook on life has changed. This came about when I was introduced to spirituality in the 12-step program of AA. The 12-step program is about spirituality. To be precise, to have a spiritual awakening, which is described in Appendix B in the Big Book as a profound personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. Profound personality change. And in the doctor's opinion of the Big Book, it talks about a psychic change. And I'll paraphrase here. Ideas, concepts, and motives that once were the driving force in our lives are cast aside, and new ideas, concepts, and motives are adopted. What does that mean? At this juncture, people make a decision. They choose amongst several options to take spiritual principles, spiritual philosophies, and apply them to their life. They take religious principles, religious philosophies, and apply them to their life. You may even choose the philosophy of the Stoics and apply it to your life. And then we notice our quality of life improves. When we apply these principles and philosophies to our life daily, our quality of life improves. Little by little, the old way of thinking is abandoned. What these principles and philosophies have in common is we take responsibility for our actions, and when considering decision making, we consider the pros and cons. We consider that our decisions sometimes or often have consequences, and they're not always positive. See, we didn't think this way before. We did not make these assessments before. We did not analyze and critique the next step. The emotional crucible that people going through a spiritual awakening experience, the emotional crucible that people transcending experience, could be described as periods of grief, of grieving. You may find yourself feeling uncomfortable even though you're doing what some people say is the next right thing. And the reason you feel uncomfortable is you're moving away from the old way of thinking, acting, and reacting to life. You're in the middle of that river that I described at the beginning of this video, and it's uncomfortable. I can tell you from my experience, my own experience, and it's the experience of others, from my decades of observations, when things go wrong, most people tend to blame another person, place, or thing for it. This wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for so-and-so. Well, I did it because I listened to what they said. Things like this. The emotional crucible is about facing reality. And in the beginning, it's uncomfortable. The emotional crucible involves meditation. I'm not saying sitting in a particular position or breathing a certain way, although you'll get to that point and you may choose to do that. I'm talking about examining your decisions, examining what you're about to do next. Every morning, I wake up. I go into the kitchen, turn the coffee pot on, get dressed. I go outside and sit in silence for 5 to 10 minutes. What I've been doing lately is, now that the weather's getting colder and I'm getting more stiff and more pain, before I sit for 5 to 10 minutes, I start walking across around the intersection here in front of my house to get the blood circulating, to get oxygen and fresh blood into my body and my brain. And I do 1 or 2 squats. Then I go sit in silence and contemplate my day. I do not turn on the television. I do not go on social media. In fact, I don't have social media. YouTube is about it. And contemplate my day. I don't start my day in any radical manner or engaging in an activity that's destructive or useless. If there is something I need to do that day or on this day when I'm sitting there in silence, I think about it. Sometimes when I'm sitting there in silence, I realize that there's something from a day or a week ago that's unresolved. And I make an effort at that point, first thing in the morning, to assess it and what I should do to resolve it. I've learned when we have unresolved issues from a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, or years ago, all these unresolved issues, we carry them from one day to the next. In the 10th step in the AA book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, it's called the emotional hangover. It clouds your judgment. It affects the decisions that are at hand. And the 12 steps, as I went through them as thorough as I could and as honestly as I could, I cleaned up that wreckage of the past. Like I was mentioning, if I sit there and there's an unresolved issue, I know now, after decades of experience, I need to attend to that. If I owe someone an apology, I need to set that right. I actually ask myself 4 questions while I'm sitting there. What do I need to do today? What should I do today? What do I have to do today? What's most important? Some things I need and should do aren't as important as others. And if there are 3 important things I need to do today, I prioritize them and set about my day. Taking responsibility for your actions and decisions is a whole new ballgame. And it's uncomfortable. Not everyone is a victim. Yet, a lot of people play the victim on a daily basis. When you move away from playing the victim and take responsibility for your actions and decisions, you go through an emotional crucible. You may find at some point that the people you've been associating with, you may make a decision that you may no longer want to associate with them for one reason or the other. You may decide, I shouldn't go to this place anymore. Things like this. If you're not strong enough to handle the daily drama and nonsense of people, places, and things, you might consider eliminating that from your life. The emotional crucible is about being true to yourself. To thine own self be true, said Shakespeare. I heard a quote a long time ago attributed to Martin Luther King Jr. I'm not what I could be, I'm not what I should be, I'm not what I'm going to be, but thank God I'm not what I was. Wayne Dyer once said, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. The emotional crucible is about change. The emotional crucible is about transforming. The emotional crucible is about transcendence. And this is what transcendence means to me. Transcendence means we exist and experience above the normal level. We exist and experience above the physical level. Make it an amazing day. Make it. It's your choice. It's your decision what kind of day you're going to have. And not just that. Make it an amazing life. It's your choice. It's your decision what kind of life you're going to have. So why not have a good one? I'll see you in the next video, hopefully. Johan out. Peace.